Hey guys, with me I have Wan Hazmer, a Malaysian man in Square Enix, the only one up to date, I'm correct, since 2000, well, I like my ears too, since 2010, and the man who put Malaysia inside the map of Final Fantasy 15. First of all, first question, how are you doing today?
Doing very, very good. Comic Festa is a blast. Every year there are new people coming in. I mean, there's so many new guests, and there are a lot of visitors now. So it's getting bigger and bigger every year. So I'm having a blast today.
You are today as the lead designer of Final Fantasy 15. How did it start? You can go as far as when you were a kid. Was it because of gaming, or was it just something that happened when you were grown up?
Right. So, well, it's going to be a long story. You sure it's okay?
Dude, I have all the time in the world, man.
All right. I was my dad actually got me a computer when I was 5 years old. Right. Yeah, that's very young. So the reason my father didn't buy a console but bought a PC is because PCs can be used for a lot of other things, not just play games. But yeah, I got into console gaming because of my cousins. So at first I played all these computer games, PC games, and then suddenly I got into the Japanese games.
PlayStation 1.
No, it was a Sega Mega Drive at the time. Yeah, so Sonic and all that stuff, right? Yeah, so um, at that time I was beginning to question, why is the level design like this? I started to criticize games. When I criticized those games, my cousins keep on telling me just shut up and play the game, that kind of thing. So I'm like thinking, maybe I can become a game designer because someone is actually making these levels, and there's a mindset as to why the level is like that, no matter how lousy or good it is, right? So yeah, that's when I started to want to become a game designer. So at the time, when I graduated from secondary school, so I was looking for a university and all that, but unfortunately there were no game design courses at the time. So I went into programming because that is you can create games by learning programming. So I joined Upit College at the time. Now it's called APU, or I don't know, Upit again. Anyway, they're really good when it comes to all these tech courses. And then I went to advertising first, right? When after I graduated for 4 years, and I learned a lot of stuff from there because advertising is one of those industries that the cycle is really, really quick, so you learn a lot of things. And then back in 2007, I quitted the advertising agency, or should I say digital media agency, right? And then I opened my own game company. I created some indie games while lecturing in places like the One Academy or even APU.
This was in Malaysia.
Yeah, this was in Malaysia. And I created two indie games, flash games, and I put them out for competition. I actually worked with my cousins and friends on these games. Yeah, as well, yes. And yeah, they won third place and also first place in those global competitions. So I thought that if I were to continue doing this, then it will only be games within my mindset, right? I wanted to expand myself. I tried to buy a lot of books from Kinokuniya, those little game design books that cost 150 ringgit above. Yeah, right. The thing is, a lot of those games cover Western game philosophies, but they rarely, or even no, I think there were none on Japanese game philosophies apart from the Nintendo book, I think. Yeah, and I was thinking, why not I just go to Japan and learn that? Because I really love Final Fantasy 7. I also love Katamari Damacy. It's a game where you just roll a ball and just roll up stuff from small so you can roll like little dust, and then after that it becomes bigger, and then you roll glass, and then after that you roll the sofa, and then you roll human beings, and then you roll continents. I know it's a silly game. It's a silly game that became a AAA title, and you have no idea how they did it. It's really crazy. So because Japan game companies are usually this black box status at the time. So I just thought, I just packed my bags with my mom's financial support and also the money that I saved up from my lecturing. I just went to Japan straight away, and I enrolled in a Japanese language school. I went for a course for 1.5 years with the sole purpose of being able to write a 10-page game design proposal in Japanese. Yeah, so that's what I did, and then I sent it to Square Enix, and yeah, that's how I got into the company. Yep.
Speaking of Square Enix,
Yep.
why Square Enix? Why not Bandai? Why not Namco? Why not Nintendo even? Just went straight up to the big leagues.
Well, Square Enix is in the big leagues, yep. But the reason why I chose Square Enix is because First of all, they were the creators of some of my favorite games in the past. Yeah, and their games usually have a lot of depth, right? So it's not just a simple gameplay that has this kind of mechanics, but it has a world. The world building is fantastic when it comes to, and I love world building because I've been interested in cultures for a very, very long time, especially modern cultures. Square Enix puts a lot of emphasis on world building, and I'm very, very interested in cultures and all that. Yeah, and also the fact that I think Square Enix is a global company. They actually make global games, so I thought that I could bring something different to the table.
Which is the Malaysian cuisine.
Exactly. Well, Malaysian cuisine is just one small part, but of course, even being a foreigner itself, being a Malaysian, I bring different stuff. I'm not only talking about the assets in the game, I also talk about the mindset, right? Team management, for example. How even game mechanics, how Malaysian thinks differently than the Japanese, right? So yeah, which is why I think Square Enix is a very, very good company for me to build up my career.
What suddenly made you think, hey, I want Malaysian food in this. I want the orang minyak and the pontianak in this. How did that work?
Well, first of all, the orang minyak and the pontianak, yes, it was rejected, unfortunately. The reason is, first of all, I'm very proud of my own culture, right? So that's why I wanted to put it in. The other thing is, obviously, it was put into context. We have the city, and we wanted the city to be not a slum, but still very, how to say, slumber, right? Very slumber and hot. It's very heaty. So. Yeah, it made me think of Malaysia right away. So we have to think of a lot of aspects when it comes to building a city, especially in Final Fantasy 15, because Final Fantasy 15 is much more realistic than a lot of Final Fantasy before. So we had to think about the whole history behind that city, like the economic status, the political status, the food culture, and all that stuff. So Malaysian food culture just fits right into the Lessalem. Yeah. Then only after that we were thinking maybe we should experience the food ourselves. So we didn't really go to a mama. We went to this little corner shop in Malaysia. It's called Malaychan, correct? And yeah, we just had our Malaysian food there, like satay and all that stuff. And the owner even brought out the cups to tarik the teh and all that. And yeah, we spilled a lot of tea on the floor. And as a Malaysian, I also spilled it. So yeah, I'm very ashamed of myself.
What do you think of, actually starting a career in gaming development here in Malaysia as opposed to before?
I think this is a great time to start because compared to many years ago, the government is really, really supporting all these Malaysian companies. This MDEC, under Hasnol, right? Yeah, so he's really, really helping to bring in all the people from overseas and as well to nurture the people locally as well. So I think this is a really, really great time to start because I think the modern game designer is very spoiled with so many options and also so many free tools online, So nowadays you don't have to spend so much money to create a good game. Yes. Yeah, Unity engine is there, and now ideas are cheap, but implementation is also cheap, right? So why not start? Yeah, it doesn't make sense not to start. Yeah.
You as a gaming designer, does it alter the way you enjoy games? In a way, like I'm playing games, I look at games, I just see it as a game. Do you see it as something else?
Yes, I do. Unfortunately, I always try my best to look at the game from a more objective view, but it's very difficult when you're in the craft, right? So whenever I play a game, I will always look very closely at the world building. So I will actually turn the camera around very slowly, look around, which I usually don't do 10 years ago, right? So, but when you're in the craft, then it just comes, the habit just kicks in. So in Japanese, it's called shigotobyo, which means job disease, occupation disease. So every single thing I analyze, I play, I always analyze slowly, and it bugs me a bit actually. I can't really enjoy a game 100% now. Yeah.
I dread to think of what happened when you play Final Fantasy 12 Remaster. How's that gonna be like?
Oh my goodness, yeah. Well, let's not think about that. I will try my best to play it as a fan, definitely. Yep.
All right, so that's final question from me is, if there anyone who wants to become something like you, what would you tell them?
Okay, so I think the first thing that someone who wants to become like me has to do is to tell yourself that ideas come cheap nowadays, right? It's easy to just tell your ideas and and be happy with it, dream about it, and all that stuff. But you'll never know whether it's fun or not until you actually create the prototype of the game, and then you have to have people playing the game because the idea when it sits in your head is always just there, and you are the one who's thinking it's great, right? So do not fear doing that prototype, right? As someone used to say, failure is an option, fear is not an option. So always try your best to just do the stuff and get to executing a work immediately whenever possible. So always fail many times because the victory that comes after that is going to be sweet, right? And the other thing is, this is something that my senior told me in Square Enix, and I find it very interesting. We have this magazine called Famitsu in Japan, and it's a weekly magazine. And their game magazines usually have, they have very nice colored pages that covers very new games, right? And they have screenshots and they have headlines and all that stuff. So when you come up with an idea, right, how will it look like in those 2 pages? Right. So what's going to be the headline, right? If the headline is too long, then your game is too complicated. Right? If the headline is not interesting, that means your game is not unique enough. Yeah, no one's gonna buy it. And imagine those 2 pages among other games that's already out there in the market, or even going to come out. Like sequels of some Final Fantasy or whatever. How will your game compare to those? So yeah, having that imagery of how the game looks like in the magazine will help you to frame the position of your game in the market right now. Yep.
All right, thanks so much, Wan Hazmer. Give me a high five. Yeah. And that's all from us. Take it back to the studio. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.